So, Stephen, we're thinking about the future of this Benefice a lot
Yes.
at the moment. We're thinking about mission and ministry. We're trying to be faithful and see where God is leading us with this. But there's a lot of things to think about. As soon as you start getting into those discussions, you kind of branch out into lots of places.
Yes.
So to help set the scene a little bit, explain some of our ideas, just give a bit of context for other people in the Benefice, maybe people even further afield, this will be useful too. So I wonder if you can start us off with what a benefice is, because it's a word we throw around all the time. It's on our logo. What is a benefice?
So the benefice is the structure, if you like, if it indeed it is a structure in the Church of England between a parish at the bottom and the deanery next up. And it's really a bit of an artificial creation because its only real life is that it's the area consisting of many churches and probably parishes over which one clergy person has responsibility.
Yep.
So the only thing that really unites our benefice as such is that they're all stuck with me. No one is stuck with anyone else being the priest in charge. I'm just the priest in charge of all those parishes and all those church buildings. That's the really, I mean, like all things in the Church of England, we could make it a lot more complicated, but that's the simple answer.
It's a strange word and strange to get your head around, I think, if you're used to just one
Yes.
parish. So with that in mind, why don't you tell us about this specific benefice and set the context for where we are working here?
Yes, so we probably know some of these statistics, don't we? So we've got 13 church buildings, 2 of which are in the care of Churches Conservation Trust. So you could call them closed, but actually we know they're not because we value and worship in 9 kirks, and when it's open again from its excellent restoration works, St Wilfrid's as well. So we've got 12 open churchyards as well, and some closed churchyards for which we have some responsibility, even though they're closed. We still conduct burials of ashes in them. We, as well as those 13 buildings and 12 churchyards, we've got 8. It was recently 9, but 8 PCCs to run. So there are a number of different overlapping structures, and overall we must be at the very large end of the Church of England. I know there are larger benefices which have a team ministry, that's to say 2 clergy people attached to them in the way that I'm attached here, but I think we must be, as in fact the rest of Appleby Deanery is, at the large end of benefices in the Church of England, and by land area we've probably got a claim to being one of the very biggest, have we? One of the aspects of being a sparsely populated area is that you tend to have large numbers of very small schools, and we've got 6 schools, 3 Church of England, 3 maintained community schools, and that's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot if you really take schools ministry seriously. If you think about that old model of one vicar, one church, one churchyard, one school. We've got, depending on how you cut it, we've got 13 times that, 12 times that, 8 times that, 6 times that.
Yeah, and certainly from my perspective, not as a vicar, but as a minister here, 6 schools, 4.5 youth groups. The half is important.
Yeah.
But actually, there's quite a lot. And in previous roles that I've had, I've never had 4.5 youth groups. We've had 1 or 2 in a week.
No, that's true.
So in your Ash Wednesday sermon, you talked about more burdens and splitting our resources. And I wonder if you can just expand a little bit on that.
So I like a catchphrase that's reasonably accurate, even if it's not perfect. And although it's an oversimplification, what I alighted upon for that sermon was the idea that our burdens are multiplied and our resources are divided. And by burdens, I don't mean things that we feel burdened by, because we love our churches, our PCCs and everything else about our benefice. But nevertheless, we have a lot of things to do. And if you have, so picking up on schools that we were just talking about, if you've got 2 schools, you want to go and do a collective worship in 2 schools. If you had the same number of children in a single school, you'd just do the collective worship once. So we end up doing a lot of different things, many different times, in slightly different, locally sensitive and in some ways better ways, but nevertheless we do an awful lot. So that's the idea of the burdens being multiplied. When I talk about our resources being divided, our population is less than that, I think, of an average Church of England parish across the whole benefice. If we had, say, 120 people in our congregation on a Sunday morning, which probably we might sometimes hope to achieve collectively across all the churches that have a service, those 120 people would feel like quite a a big bunch of people, and they'd be very active.
And in this diocese, we'd be there going, that's a huge
It'd be a
church.
huge church by the standards of our diocese. So I've been in a church where there was a Sunday congregation of about 120 people. We only had to find out of that 120 people one treasurer.
Yes.
Here, if we have a congregation of 120, we need 8 treasurers
For our 8 PCCs.
for our 8 PCCs.
Yes.
We need, if it's one of those Sundays where we have 7 services, we need to find 3.5, because we often do 2 each. We need to find 3.5 people to lead those services. In the notional church, which had just one congregation of 120, they need 1 person. So if they've got several ministers, they can take it in turns, and the burden is very lightly borne. There's some consistency problems actually when that happens, because you see, as we do, different people on different weeks, and there's no kind of continuity of preaching. But overall, I think it's a sort of fair description. We have really great resources, but we split them lots of different ways, and we double up on all sorts of roles, and we have very large number of those roles to fill and to discharge.
And this isn't an easy problem to fix, is it? That's what we're
No.
coming to the conclusion of.
No.
You and I have talked about this a lot in various different situations with various different people. And that's partly why we're gathering again on Saturday, to try and get more people together in one place to talk about it. I still have very few ideas. What do we do here? Where do we need to go?
So if you imagine that we were a kind of chain of corner shops that had, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 in our area, in the biggest villages and hamlets of our benefice, you'd probably say, well, everyone's in driving distance of everyone else. So what we're going to do is open one shop, and we're all going to shop there, because most people are able to travel or have someone else who can travel for them. The Church of England has always thought of itself as the church in every place. We know that everybody values being able to worship in their own church, and indeed the people who want to worship differently, well, there are other churches available for them, and they are already going to them. So the people we're serving are people who want to worship in a very particular local way and see their mission, the service they give to their community, is also very local, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's the defining virtue of the Church of England. So in a sense, if we give that up, if we were like my notional corner shop example, where we just consolidate into one little shop in one place, actually we've just denied what we are, and it won't work, because, as I say, that model of church is already available elsewhere. We're supposed to be the church which is open to all and in every place. So we have to find some way of achieving mission effectively and shepherding our resources so that we can preserve that sense of being present in every place, but are also viable.
And I think that's the big thing, is being viable and sustainable as well, that this isn't just for now.
No.
This is the future of the church.
Yeah. It's so that we can ensure that we can maintain our buildings and our mission in the future, at a time when we really feel, I think, that we are losing people.
Yeah.
We're just not as many as once we were. And there probably was a time when each of the villages didn't have too much difficulty finding a church warden or 2, finding a treasurer, finding a secretary. We now really struggle to do that, and we can sometimes just hang on by the skin of our teeth. But actually, that's not the way God intended the church to be, is it? God intended the church to be an active place that preaches his word afresh in every generation, that does things, that serves, is present in the community in a meaningful way. If we're just 3 or 4 of us hanging on for dear life, we won't have the spare headspace, time, resource to do that. We also won't grow younger or find new members. We won't, frankly, be a very attractive worshipping community for people to join, and we'll just dwindle further and further. So there's a little bit of a challenge to try and maintain all that's good, but also find a way of making it sustainable into the future. And I think we're still working on a model that was good on an assumption of much higher rates of church going. And there just aren't that many of us. There are enough of us in this area to produce, by the standards of very densely populated parts of the country, one church. And we know that people who, we went and spoke to friends in a parish with just one church and one vicar and said, I'm sure you find it really easy to find a treasurer. find it really easy to field a full PCC, I'm sure they would say, well, not that easy, thank you very much. They look on us and marvel at how we manage to pull it off. I mean, from the outside, it looks quite impressive. On the inside, we probably sometimes feel like we're the proverbial swan on the water, serene on the surface and paddling for dear life underneath the surface. I certainly often feel like that, and I feel that I have to do the necessary administrative things because they're necessary and legally required and all that sort of thing, and then the end of the day arrives and I haven't done the things that probably we all actually want to do.
Yeah, I think that idea of other people being quite impressed is true, and I think we need to hold on to that as well, because there are so many things that we're doing that are really, really good as well, and so we're not sat here going, oh my goodness, everything is a problem and our benefice is rubbish and we need to change it all and throw the baby out with the bathwater and all of those things. We're really not
we're
saying
really not saying that. No, and we don't want to say it on a sort of video that everyone's going to be watching, because we don't want to be blowing our own trumpet. But we do an awful lot of work in an awful lot of schools. We do run an awful lot of youth groups. We manage an extraordinary number of church services on a Sunday and at other occasions. We have all sorts of other activities that are going on. Many of our church members do all sorts of volunteering in their communities as part of the expression of their Christian faith.
Yeah.
So actually we're punching in some ways hugely above our weight. If only we could just find some way of bringing that same extraordinary effort to slightly more efficient bearing.
And we want to make sure that that extraordinary effort and joy and service carries on for years and years and years to come, and other people hear about Jesus because of it. So we're recognising the good and going, how can we keep this going? That's what I see here, is we want to celebrate what is going on because there's brilliant stuff, but we also see that when we have our big picture hat on of the next 5, 10, 30, 50 years, what work are we doing now for future generations?
Yes. We do not want to be those people who say, I don't care, it'll see me out.
Yeah, absolutely.
May we never become those people.
May we never become those people.